Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Web-Based Supports for Pre-Service and In-Service Education in AAC. And happy International AAC Awareness Month 2017. So, my name is Amy Goldman. I'm your facilitator for this evening's webinar. Tonight's program is brought to you by the U.S. Society for AAC, or USSAAC, the voice of AAC. Thanks to the USSAAC Education Committee and to ISAC for making this possible. Before we begin the program, USSAAC stands in solidarity with the victims of this past weekend's horrific attacks in Edmonton, Canada, and Las Vegas. Now, more than ever, communication and community are critical. USSAAC is thrilled with the response to tonight's topic. We have well over 100 people registered from all over. This webinar is free. If you are new to USSAAC, we hope you will join USSAAC by going to www.ussac.org/membership. Our new membership year begins January 1st, 2018. And as you may know, one of our member benefits is early registration for USSAAC members. As a disclosure, I have no relevant financial or non-financial relationships to disclose relevant to the content of the webinar. Just some logistics. Your microphone will be muted. You can ask questions by typing into the question box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Questions will be answered as time allows in the last segment of the webinar. We may group together questions that are similar. We ask that you pose your question in a general fashion rather than related to a specific individual. Questions that are not responded to during the webinar may be answered afterwards. Continuing education. The ASHA CEU participant form and certificate of attendance can be found at www.isaac-online.org/English/news/webinars. You must stay for the duration of the webinar in order to receive credit. And our webinar platform lets us see who is on and for how long. Directions for submitting the completed form are also on the site. You have 2 weeks to submit for CEUs. But in case you didn't catch that whole link, you will receive a follow-up email that provides the link to the archive, the CEU form, and instructions. So, learning objectives for tonight. Participants will learn the topics and formats for web-based learning materials currently provided by the RERC on AAC. That's the Rehabilitation Engineering Research Center. The topics and formats for web-based learning materials currently under development by the RERC, and how to contribute to the development of new web-based materials in the future. And of course, I have this slide in here to remind me to tell you all about the efforts of USSAAC in supporting people who use AAC and their families impacted by disasters. So again, when you get the archive of tonight's presentation, I hope that you'll explore these 2 websites, one set up for Hurricane Harvey, and that was, of course, before we knew about Irma and Maria. You can also go to the USSAAC website, www.ussac.org, and click on the Emergency Preparedness tab. Okay, about our speaker. David McNaughton teaches classes on augmentative and alternative communication, assistive technology, and professional communication skills at the Pennsylvania State University. His current research interests include the development of vocational opportunities for individuals with severe disabilities and literacy instruction for children with complex communication needs. He is co-director of dissemination and training activities for the RERC on AAC, and that's what brings him here tonight. Our presenter receives grant funds but has no other non-financial disclosures to report. So without further ado, Dr. McNaughton.
Thank you, Amy. I very much appreciate the opportunity to meet with the audience tonight, and I'm just going to. So I'm hoping at this point you're seeing my main slide, web-based supports for pre-service and in-service education. So I look forward to the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I was thrilled both the response to people that have enrolled for this webinar, and also thank you very much for the responses to the surveys that I sent out. Well over half of the participants responded, and I'm looking forward to sharing the information with you this evening. Just a quick word of introduction or a little bit of the agenda for this evening. So I'll be talking a little bit about the challenge that we face in disseminating information on augmentative communication as a field. And I think this is really a challenge that affects all of us, whether we're working clinically in university settings, whether we're a family member of an individual that uses AAC, but we face a very large challenge in just spreading the word about the work that we do. I also plan on speaking about the AAC Learning Center.psu.edu, which is a new web-based resource that we hope will provide an umbrella for the activities that the RERC has been involved with in the past, and will also provide one-stop shopping, for want of a better word, although all the materials are free, for the materials that we will be developing on augmentative and alternative communication. So I'll talk in more detail about each of those topics as we move forward. So I think all of us that work in the field are aware both of the importance and joy of success in this area of providing augmentative communication services, and also the challenges that we face. So you're looking at pictures and going from top left in a clockwise fashion, I guess, of Chris Klein, a young man with cerebral palsy who lives in Michigan and is involved in running a mentor site for individuals who use AAC. Lateef McLeod, who lives in California, very active on the ISAAC Executive Board. Tracy Rackensberger, and I should be saying Dr. Tracy Rackensberger, who recently completed her doctoral program at the University of Georgia. And Godfrey Nazareth in the bottom left corner, who is an engineer working at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. All of these individuals make use of augmentative and alternative communication. All of these individuals face significant ongoing challenges, but I think really are outstanding examples of what's possible when appropriate communication services are provided. However, as I'm sure Amy Goldman and many others could describe in great detail, is that there are a great percentage of people that are either underserved with respect to AAC services or are receiving no services at all. So while we are excited about what is possible with AAC, I think daily we are faced with the challenge of there are just enormous numbers of people that could be benefiting from AAC and are not benefiting from AAC simply because there are large numbers of people that don't really know or understand the work that we do. So that's sort of step one, just that basic awareness level of individuals for whom AAC could be of benefit. And then the second level, and I think Lou Gollenker speaks very clearly to this point, is that we have a real need for additional individuals with the expertise needed to provide assessment and intervention services. So first off, people don't really even know to ask for what we do. And second off, when people do ask, we don't often have the number of skilled clinicians and educators needed in order to provide appropriate support services. So that is the challenge we face. So some more grim statistics before we move on. So over half of speech-language pathologists in schools serve children who have limited speech, but over 85% of practicing speech-language pathologists did not complete a course that focused on the needs of children with complex communication needs, focused on the needs of children who will make use of AAC. And in fact, when we ask speech-language pathologists, the two top areas that they identify as areas of need are training in augmentative alternative communication and services for English language learners. So to some extent, you put the two of those together, we've really got a challenge on our hands. But mostly this evening, we're going to be talking about that first challenge, training in augmentative communication, but we will also be talking about some of the things that we're trying to do to extend outreach to populations for whom English is a second language. Again, more grim statistics. We are currently somewhere between 18 and 35% of pre-service programs don't have any coursework at all in AAC. Many of those that do sort of squeeze in 1 to 4 hours at some point, and only a small percentage of programs offer full courses in augmentative and alternative communication, and it's rarely a required course. Finally, when we do look at the programs that are providing AAC, frequently we see those programs being provided by individuals that do not themselves have expertise in augmentative communication and are sometimes placed in the challenging situation of having faculty who would not describe themselves as experts in AAC actually teaching the AAC course. I do want to stop at this point and say I have some empathy with those individuals that find themselves teaching in areas for which they really wish they had additional support, wish they had additional preparation. I'm currently teaching a class on assistive technology, which is kind of an overview umbrella course on assistive technology, and every semester there's a section of the course that deals with assistive technology for individuals with visual impairment. Well, it's about all I can do to keep current on assistive technology for people in my area of specialty. I struggle to keep up to date in all those areas in which assistive technology is being used. So, you know, I want to be very clear that I'm not being, that I fully support those individuals who recognize that they cannot be experts in everything and are looking for supports in a particular area of instruction to help them in the work that they do. So the challenges that we face currently are challenges that have been with us for some period of time. And as frequently happens in the world of augmentative and alternative communication, there are a brave few souls who grab the bull by the horns and start to take action. And I think with respect to beginning to recognize the power of web-based education as a method of spreading the word, we can thank Michael Williams, we can thank Sarah Blackstone, we can thank Barry Romick, who were some of the first people involved in creating and disseminating a presentation by Michael Williams. So Michael was awarded the Edwin and Esther Prentke-Romick Award, gave a presentation at ASHA, did the presentation again and had it videotaped. We picked that up as a webinar, and that webinar has been enormously successful for us over time, over 20,000 views. And we knew we'd really hit upon something when David Buchelman told us that the very first class of each semester, he showed the lecture by Michael Williams. So that helped us really feel that not only were we developing materials being used by people who were reaching out for new information, but people who were recognized as international experts found value in these web-based materials as well. So from that start, as part of the RERC, we have continued to build a wide variety of webcast type materials. So the presentation by Michael Williams, a presentation by Colin Portnoff, an individual with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, reflecting upon his use of augmentative and alternative communication. A presentation by Godfrey Nazareth, another individual with ALS. We've also done consumer perspective videos by Anthony Arnold, David Chappell, Beth Ann Luciani, Pamela Kennedy. So a little bit later on, I'll be sharing with you links that give you access to those consumer perspective videotapes, but that's been a central part of what we've tried to do. Keep the voice of individuals who use augmentative and alternative communication themselves prominent in our educational materials. We have also tried to develop and share materials by researchers who have used this as a platform for research to practice activities. So when I surveyed you on the webcasts that were most frequently viewed, the three that showed up most prominently were the webcasts by Michael Williams and then the language and literacy webcasts by Janice Light. Also very strong viewership for the webcast by Lou Goniker on funding support for speech generating devices, as well as the presentations by David Buchelman and Susan Fager on supporting communication of individuals with minimal movement. None of these webcasts were meant to be used in an integrated manner and be a standalone course. Rather, our goal was creating something that could be easily infused into an existing class. As well as those webcasts, we've also been involved in developing a number of websites. So the websites give us an opportunity to have more text with integrated videos, try and move through explaining new clinical practices in a little more detail. So we've developed websites on literacy instruction, early intervention practices, and we have our ongoing website now with the current RERC. So the current RERC is the RERC on AAC, and we maintain a website there as well for information on recent presentations, those sorts of things. In a moment or two, I'm going to start to talk about where we hope to go next with the web-based materials we're developing as part of the RERC, and I'm going to be sharing the information that you've provided back to me through the surveys. As I talk about the materials developed by the RERC, I do want to point out some of the outstanding materials that are available from a number of other providers. So USSAAC has a regular program of offering these webcasts, make them available as follow-up activities on YouTube. Practical AAC has been an outstanding resource that continues to be developed over time. Barbara Collier's work with developing web-based materials to help businesses that want to become better locations, better business people in a sense, in communicating with individuals with complex communication needs. And Isaac has an ongoing program of developing new and innovative web-based materials, including the Isaac YouTube channel. So again, there are lots of people involved in this effort. In the interests of time, I'm probably going to focus on the materials being developed by the RERC, but that's in no way to say that there aren't a lot of good things going on from a lot of different providers. So as I started to assemble this presentation, I started to think about all the materials that are out there and the communications that we typically get about those materials. And in a lot of ways, we feel positively about where we've gotten to. So, you know, a number of the materials that we've developed have been used extensively and on an ongoing basis. We've had over 9,000 individuals complete quizzes that are associated with these different materials. We've had over 80 different colleges and universities that make use of these materials and strong use of the websites. But our current situation is a little bit like going up in the attic, where everything up there has value, but it's really getting hard to keep track of what is where and putting new things in there in an organized way. So one of the places where we have posted webcasts in the past is at the AAC RERC site that you see there in the bottom right-hand corner. That site was developed in 2007, the same year the iPhone was introduced. So the software that was used to create that site is really getting pretty old and clunky and is becoming much more difficult to use. So it really struck us that this is a time where we need to gather up and think about where we are and where we want to go and what's the best way of moving forward. So our first step in doing that was to think about who are these web-based materials for? So one of the questions that I asked you was, for what audiences do you see web-based educational materials being useful? And the number one answer was sharing with persons who use AAC and family members. And I really wish I'd sort of put a place there for almost like the general public, because I think this answer is spot on, so to speak. One of the great challenges we face is just introducing people who know nothing about the work that we do and the resources that are available, introducing them to what is possible with augmentative communication. Another frequently identified group was personal information. So again, individuals that with, thinking of speech language pathologists working in schools, the wide variety of individuals on their caseload, those individuals have a need for ongoing information about what's current in the field of AAC. So I think when we look at those two populations, it influences what types of resources we try to provide and how we provide them. So for those individuals who are looking for just quick, easy access to new information, don't want to go through a registration process, are not interested in taking quizzes, just want something free and current, we've developed a website called aaclearningcenter.psu.edu. And I've provided the address there. It's necessary to use the hyphens, but that's what we see as the new home, so to speak, the new umbrella organization for everything we've ever done as part of the RERC. So all the webcasts we've ever made, all the readings we've provided, all the fact sheets we've produced are all going to be at aaclearningcenter.psu.edu. That is going to be their new long-term home. So for those of you that are used to finding those resources in other places, we will be posting messages at those other places, redirecting you to this new site. Because what this new site will allow us to do is to create links between those materials and provide a wide range of new activities that we're very excited about. The other thing you see listed there are AAC ads. So a new area that we're starting to explore is the production of very short 1 to 2 minute YouTube video clips on a specific topic. So a 2-minute clip on funding, a 2-minute clip on alternative access, a 2-minute clip on literacy instruction for individuals who use AAC. And our goal here is just to very, very quickly show people what is possible, introduce people to some of the terminology associated with these areas, and point people to new information. I fully recognize that some of the information we've produced in the past, coming in at 60, 70, 80 minutes, is somewhat intimidating for novices to the field. There are people that are ready for and enjoy that depth of content, but we run the risk of losing a lot of people if that's the only option we provide. So we are looking forward to developing these AAC ads. The other thing we'll be doing with those is working to develop them in 5 languages. So we are embracing the challenge of spreading the word with English language learners, and we hope that by producing these short 1 to 2 minute clips in a variety of languages, that will be a way of reaching out and starting a conversation with people that may not have had access to this information in the past. So I don't know how many of the participants on this webcast have already clicked on the link. For those of you that are still with me, we are starting a soft opening, so to speak, of the AAC Learning Center. So we are still in the process of adding materials there, but they say in the restaurant business, and I think in the theater world, you should always roll things out slowly, get some feedback as you go before you make your grand opening. So you are part of the soft opening. This is the off-Broadway presentation, and I look forward to your feedback as to how we can help this better meet your needs. But as you see, when you come to the site, there will be some categories that will be themed material, so to speak. You'll have the ability to search by the topic, the author, the generator of the content. We will have an ongoing mailing list for those of you that want to get regular updates on what materials have been added to the site. So again, just trying to create something that is quick and easy to navigate and a useful place for people that just want general information. And again, this is what a typical page will look like. So you'll be able to search by a variety of mechanisms. So one of the things that I asked you was where you would like us to go next in our development of content. So the number one topic was children, followed closely by autism. A lot of interest in language and literacy interventions for that population, and a lot of interest in how to successfully implement interventions at schools. I will say that I think I'm going to continue this survey over time. I don't know to what extent these results are somewhat a reflection of this particular audience, but what you're saying actually resonates very strongly with what I typically hear from university faculty, that this is the major interest. These are major interests of theirs in working with their students. Interest in working with families, interest in supporting individuals with developmental delays other than autism, interest in working with adults, funding issues, hospital settings, and then interestingly, 2 write-in votes for interdisciplinary collaboration. And I sort of got thinking it's a little bit like when you're a politician and you actually get a handwritten letter on a particular topic. You pay an awful lot of attention to the fact that somebody, took the time to write a letter. So I found that very interesting, and that's an area that we hope to pursue, is providing educational supports for interdisciplinary collaboration. Okay, so just to sum up, that's basically one aspect of the work that we're going to do. Free resources, easily searchable, no registration, no quizzes, just come there, use it, da-da-da-da. At the same time, we have another population that has slightly different needs. So we talked earlier about the number of faculty that will tell you quite bluntly that they do not consider themselves experts in AAC and would value additional supports. We know there are programs that struggle to even offer coursework because of the need for additional support in providing that coursework. So 2 major groups that we want to address with a slightly different focus are individuals that are involved in university teaching and individuals that are working in schools with educational personnel. And again, you see roughly 50% of audience members saw that as a strong need for new educational materials. So for this group, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be developing courses that will still be free, but will require a registration. And we'll talk about the benefits of that registration in just a moment. Again, I want to be absolutely clear. Everything that we do will also be available on the first site that I described without registration. So there's nothing that you have to register in order to see. However, what we're told by university faculty and those who are working with educational personnel is that there's value in people being able to track their activities, value in people being able to complete quizzes and obtain certificates of completion, those sorts of things for course requirements, professional development requirements. And in order to do that reliably, we need registration. So that's why we've created this second strand, so to speak, in which we are taking our content, organizing it into courses and topics, providing quizzes and some additional things as well. And I'll talk about those in just a moment. Before I talk in more detail about the types of materials we'll be providing, I just wanted to give you a glimpse of some of the topics that we will be completing first, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the topics that we hope to develop over time. So the topics that we're addressing first, so we'll be doing sort of an introduction to funding for speech generating devices for school-age children. and having a separate module there on submitting a funding request. We expect, both of those modules to be available for November 1st. If anybody would like a sneak peek before that, send me an email with all of these things. You'll see that we have a small team of contributors, but we would always benefit from another pair of eyes and so some editing assistance. So if you're interested in a sneak peek before the target date for some of these things, send me an email. I can give you access, and I would very much appreciate your feedback. But we are anticipating that the funding module will be available November 1st. So for those of you looking for activities for spring semester 2018, that will be available. We also anticipate that our module on alternative access will be available during the spring semester. I actually hope that particular target date will bump up a little bit, but by all means no later than March 1st, 2018. And we have some doctoral students from Communication Sciences and Disorders, Jessica Gormley, and from Special Education, Naima Bana, who are assisting with those materials. Our literacy module, we are currently testing with Penn State undergrads and building that feedback into the module. We expect that to be completed by May 1st. And again, we have a team of Penn State faculty and graduate students. We have an exciting module being developed on family-centered practices and supporting the use of AAC in schools. Kelsey Mandak is doing that as her doctoral dissertation research. So again, we've been really excited about the idea of not only developing materials, but being able to evaluate those materials with our undergraduate and graduate student population here, refining those materials, and also being able to share results on the impact of those materials. And then finally, we'll be working with Chris Klein to develop a module on transition, and that's really transition to adult life for individuals who use AAC, and the first module there will be on building community. So those are some of the topics that we will be addressing over the next, 9 months? And again, we would welcome people who would like to take an early view, and as always, we welcome ideas for new topics as we move forward. As you look into this website that will house the courses, you'll see a number of different things there. So again, people will register once and then have access to a number of different courses that they sign up for. So for those of you that are familiar with learning management systems, this particular one is called Moodle, and again is a free, robust way of offering coursework and being able to track people's participation in that coursework. We will be able to offer certificates for people that complete a particular set of activities. And you'll notice there that there's a upcoming events calendar. So one of the things that we're looking forward to is being able to offer activities above and beyond the courses that will provide additional support for those courses. So I'll talk about that in just a moment. So diving down a little bit deeper, in the funding for AAC in schools module, you'll see that it's a 7-lesson module that moves through a number of topic areas. There are brief comprehension checks, so to speak, periodically throughout those materials. There's also a pre-test and a post-test to help us and help you as instructors evaluate the impact of this instruction on the students that are taking it. Because it's a learning management system, it does not, to be blunt, look as flashy as some of the other materials that you'll see out there. However, we are working to find ways to make the materials engaging. We will be including a lot of short case studies. We will be including a lot of short videos, interviews with experts. So we are working to make this an engaging, positive experience for students. We are also working to keep the length of time with these materials between 25 and 30 minutes. And again, I was happy to see from the survey, that's what you regard as the ideal length. So that's the goal that we're setting for ourselves with these materials. It's also possible for us to do quizzes in a wider variety of formats than we were in the past. So we've always been able to do multiple choice quizzes, which basically calls for a recognition response. We are now able to include open-ended questions within our quizzes, which calls for a production response, which I think you'd agree most people find to be more challenging. So it's a more rigorous comprehension check than we've been able to make use of in the past. And the thing we really want to explore with this capability and some other tools that we're going to be able to use is not just quizzing students, so to speak, on what type questions, so being able to describe something, but also pushing them to provide responses on why they would provide services in a particular way, or how they might provide services. So again, with this open-ended question capability, we've got some new opportunities there. And again, these were resultant certificates. Yes, and so this is what, because individuals will be registering, they will see a home registration page for themselves every time they sign in. This is a student I made up for myself. So this is David Spled 419. So I just sign in as this individual to sort of see what the site looks like as a student. So again, once you sign in, you would be able to see the courses for which you have registered. You'd be able to check your progress within the different courses as an individual. Because you are a registered user, you can start to save private files that you always want to be able to have access to. And as you complete certificates, you get badges. So we may or may not stay with the term badges to describe certificates of completion, but that's a commonly used term. We'll see what we do there. So in addition to the quizzes and some of those more traditional things, some of the services that we'll now be able to provide are things like discussion boards. So what we envision and what we've been testing and we will be rolling out in the coming semesters will be opportunities for individuals who have participated in one of these courses to ask questions of a guest speaker. So anybody who has obtained a passing score on the relevant materials for a particular topic would then gain access to this question and answer session with a guest speaker. And partly what we're trying to do here, in a sense, is, if we're reaching out to somebody who's an expert on funding, we can say to that expert, you will be fielding questions from people that have already demonstrated a basic knowledge of how funding mechanisms operate. So we would expect these questions to sort of be going the next level in terms of particular points of policy, particular issues of clarification. So our hope is, in a sense, is that for people that need basic introductory information, they would work their way through the website, learn the vocabulary, learn the most typical policies and procedures. And then the question and answer session would be a more specialized discussion, for want of a better word, that would be where all the participants would have that core understanding of the topic. Our hope is that we will be able to have some guest speakers come back on a regular basis so that faculty could, in a sense, schedule into their syllabus that a particular speaker would be available on a particular date in the fall and a particular date in the spring. Our vision is that speakers would be available at this discussion board, so to speak, over a 3-day period. So it would be regularly monitored for 3 days each semester, left up there as an archive basis beyond that. But again, that way faculty can build into their courses that a particular speaker will be responding to posed questions at a particular time. So again, just, Chris Klein is somebody that we're very hopeful we can engage in an activity like this. I've regularly used Chris as a guest speaker in my class. My students regularly tell me it's their favorite class of the semester. I'm at peace with that, and I'm hoping to provide that same opportunity to faculty at other institutions. Finally, I'm anticipating a private faculty area. So I would like to establish an area on this learning management system that would be, in a sense, by invitation only. And my goal there is it would be a discussion place for people who are teaching coursework in augmentative and alternative communication, so that we can talk as colleagues about what we've seen work well, what are areas for growth in the materials being provided by the RERC, talk about maybe additional activities that we found to be useful discussion starters. I also would like to use it as a place to share some in-class practice activities that we've developed over the years. So, again, for things like literacy instruction, we've developed live in-class materials where we have students conduct different types of role plays. It took me a couple of cracks at it to get closer to where I wanted to be, and I would be happy to share those materials with other faculty that are interested in doing something like that in their classes. And I'd be very interested in hearing from other faculty what activities they've done that they've found to be useful and they would like to share with other faculty involved in AAC coursework. So again, from aaclearningcenter.psu.edu, we're going to have those two major directions. One direction is free resources. The other direction is one in which those same resources, or at least some of those resources, will be organized into structured content. Quizzes will be available there, other activities. Both are free. The courses will require registration because there are ways to monitor progress and participation in that area. At the same time, we have that new umbrella site being creative. We will continue to maintain those sites that you are used to. So some of those sites I would characterize as active sites. So for those of you that are familiar with aac.psu.edu, so that's really a website that mostly deals with the educational activities here at Penn State, but is open to the public, and I would encourage you to visit if you're interested. We will also continue to maintain and update the RERC on AAC website, which describes the activities of the current RERC. So those sites are both active. You can expect to see new information there weekly, monthly. Those sites, AAC Kids, AAC Literacy, and the AAC RERC, I'm calling those legacy sites. You'll notice they're shaded a little bit gray. They still have good information. They still have, valuable messages for us, but they are very, very difficult to update. So we are not taking them down. They will continue to be there, but we are not able to update them. So for for all information, please visit the aaclearningcenter.psu.edu, as over time that will become the center for all materials that you used to find on AAC Kids, AAC Literacy, and AAC-RERC. So again, it is our hope that the materials that we're developing will be useful to you in your roles as speech language pathologists, special educators, university faculty members, family members of people who use AAC, people who use AAC themselves. The challenge is large, but I think we have some outstanding success stories to show us what is possible, and we hope the materials we are developing will contribute to successful outcomes for others in the future. I'm going to go quickly to our funding slide so that it's been a part of this webcast. So we very much appreciate the funding from NIDLR and the federal government. And I'm going to bounce back to the slide that describes the different resources that are up. And I am now going to turn the presentation back over to Amy, who I believe may have some questions.
Okay, thank you very much, David. We do have a couple of questions in there. One question is it possible to get ASHA CEUs for participating in any of the courses, especially those that have the evaluation?
Sure. So we would be very interested in partnering with an organization that provides CEUs. We are not in a position to handle any financial transactions ourselves in a sense. So we would be interested in partnering with another organization that does offer CEUs if they would like to sort of investigate how the work people do at our site could be recognized for CEUs by somebody else. But we do not currently have a mechanism for offering CEUs.
Okay.
Because we can't handle funds.
Okay. We had another question. What are the 5 languages you will be producing resources in?
We are open to contributions on that. So my question to my graduate student who's approaching that is to figure out the 5 most commonly spoken languages in America. And so we had some guesses, but I've got a graduate student whose mission is to track down what are the 5 languages most commonly spoken in the US. So if people have additional input, you know, we may extend to 7, because my thinking, or 7 or even 10. My thinking is that with the graduate student population here at Penn State, we should have good access to 30 or 40 or 50 languages. So I'm more than happy to investigate. I probably won't go past 10, but if people have a strong area of interest in a particular language, we would be happy to investigate that.
Okay. Is there an email that people could contact you with?
Sure. dbm2@psu.edu.
Great. Another question is for areas with gaps in research in regards to AAC, for example, telepractice, is there a way to personally ask and provide input as you develop your resources and your courses?
If people have topics that they would like to see addressed, again, I would encourage them to contact me, because we have a number of ways that we, so for example, we have an ongoing colloquium series here in augmentative and alternative communication, and we often take presentations that have been done at those colloquiums and turn them into webcasts. So if there are individuals that would be interested in leading a conversation on a topic like that, or of information they'd like to share, in a sense, we could capture that in a colloquium and then, you know, translate that into a webcast. So I would encourage people again to contact me if they have content they would like to share.
Great. Could you give your email one more time?
Sure. dbm2@psu.edu. And I'll add that to the slides so that if people look at the PDF for the slides, it'll be available there as well.
Great, thank you. One additional question, and that is, how accessible will the materials be? So for example, are the webcasts going to be captioned?
Yes, the webcasts are all captioned. So the webcasts are all going to be coming through YouTube, and YouTube provides wonderful captioning support. So we will be using the captioning services provided by YouTube, and it's my understanding, but we're currently continuing to do testing on the Moodle materials, that they are all ADA compliant, so that they so we are providing alt text for images and tables and figures and all those sorts of things.
Great. This sort of cycles back to the language question. We had a question whether any material will be in French.
So there's a good question. This is kind of being Amerocentric, isn't it? So I would anticipate, that would certainly seem to make good sense within a North American context. So again, just to be clear, I am not anticipating that our entire courses will be translated into multiple languages, although if there's sufficient interest, we could undertake that. Our first and primary goal will be that the fact sheets and the AAC ads are translated into multiple languages. And to the extent that if we think North American rather than just American, there is a sizable French-speaking population, I guess that would make sense. So I'll put an asterisk besides French.
Especially since you're Canadian.
That's right. I'm going to be in big trouble getting back across the border. So.
Right. Along the lines of language, will there be any effort to have particularly consumer-oriented materials done in simple English?
I think that's one of the goals with the fact sheets and the AAC ads, is that those would be written really with an audience that is new to this content in mind. So I think that's an interesting, I mean, I guess that's a good suggestion. I will speak with people that have more expertise than I do in that issue of writing at levels that would be most widely understood. So that's definitely an issue to think more about.
Yeah, and actually ISAAC has done some work in that area, and also along the lines of language. I don't know if this is a verb or not, but symbolifying any of the materials.
Is that a question?
Yeah. Have you thought about?
I'll be absolutely honest, that's one we would have to look at pretty seriously and look for research that actually, I guess I'd be looking for, that's one we would have to look at pretty seriously.
Okay, great. I do not see any other questions at this time. So do you have any last comments, David, before we wrap up with our ending business?
No, again, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the opportunity to share these materials, and to thank those people that responded to the survey. That was enormously useful to us, and we look forward to further development and addressing those interests.
Okay. So as soon as I get control, there we are, of these slides again. Okay, so, whoops. So again, I wanted to thank you, David, for an informative presentation, and I know we all look forward to seeing these materials. Now, you all probably know that the job's not done till the paperwork is in. So please complete the evaluation that you will find at www.usac.org/webinar. And we are particularly interested in your suggestions for future topics. Speaking of future topics, we hope that you will save the date for our next webinar, which is part of our celebration of International AAC Awareness Month. Dr. Yusun Chung, who herself is a user of AAC, will lead a discussion with India Oakes and her son Jack about leadership. And India is also a person who uses AAC. So mark October 23rd at 7 p.m. Eastern on your calendar. As always, USAC Twitter chats are the second Thursday of the month at 8 p.m. Eastern. Please be sure to join USAC to make sure you get the inside scoop on AAC in the United States. So again, here's a slide about our next webinar. And Franklin, you want to say a few words about ISAC?
Thank you very much, Amy. And I'd also, of course, like to express my appreciation to both yourself and David and all of USSAAC for the tremendous support. And as you noted earlier, Isaac, of course, is very proud to be able to provide some assistance in helping USSAAC deliver this wonderful content. And I just wanted to take a brief moment and just remind everyone that Isaac is also very excited and thrilled to be hosting Conference 2018 next year on Gold Coast in the beautiful state of Queensland in Australia. And for those of you who may not have heard, our call for papers has been extended now for an additional couple of weeks. So there is still time to get any paper proposals in. And the call for papers will remain open until October 16th. So please make sure to get your presentations in, and we look forward to seeing you next year on Gold Coast. Our conference co-chairs and the leadership team are working exceptionally hard at making this a fabulous conference not to be missed. The very first Asia-Pacific conference for Isaac and the first one in Australia. So we look forward to seeing everyone next year. Amy?
Well, that concludes this evening's webinar. Thank you all for joining. Please remember you have 2 weeks to submit for your free ASHA CEUs if you're a member. That's one of your member benefits, and $25 for all others. Please visit the USSAAC website and learn more about what we're doing in emergency preparedness, emergency response, and let that be a reminder to us all to be prepared. So have a good night, everyone, and hope to hear you at our next AAC Awareness Month event, either a Twitter chat or the October 23rd webinar. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.